Coming up next on Insights on PBS Hawaii, will transit-oriented development work for Hawaii? Aloha and welcome to Insights. I'm Daryl Huff with Hawaii News Now for Insights on PBS Hawaii. Whether you want it or not, Honolulu's rail transit is coming. Planners hope that hubs along the 20-mile rail line will be developed to include housing, jobs, green spaces, and businesses for people who want to be close to the train. The city says each stop is being tailored to the community it's in. But how can we be sure that transit-oriented development will work for us? How will it fit into established neighborhoods? Will transit-oriented development work for Hawaii? Insights on PBS Hawaii invites you to participate in our conversation on transit-oriented development. If you have a question or comment for our panel, call 973-1000 if you live on Oahu, or 800-283-4347 if you live on a neighbor island, or go to pbshawaii.org to send us an email, or you can also send us a tweet at PBS Hawaii. Now to our panel. Walter Tamas is Kamehameha School's Chief of Staff. Mr. Tamas works with Kamehameha School CEO and represents the Trust's priorities and initiatives. One of those is overseeing the commercial development of Kamehameha School's Kaka'ako lands, many of which will be affected by the rail line. Senator Breen Harimoto is a Democrat representing Pearl City, Aiea, Halava, and Pearl Harbor. He was elected to the Senate last year after serving on the Honolulu City Council from 2010 to 2014. As a councilman and now as senator, he is a vigorous proponent of the rail project. Harrison Rue is the City Community Building and Transit-Oriented Development Administrator. It's quite a title. Previously, Mr. Rue was principal with ICF International, a Virginia-based consulting firm where he worked on transportation planning. And Donna Wong is the executive director of Hawaii's Thousand Friends, a nonprofit organization dedicated to protecting Hawaii's natural and cultural resources. Ms. Wong is concerned that some transit-oriented development could adversely affect conservation land and cultural sites. Now let's begin our show with Harrison Rue from the city. Tell us, what does transit-oriented development really mean? We hear the word a lot. What does it mean?
It's a geeky planner word. I mean, Mayor Caldwell actually likes to think of it as transit-enhanced neighborhoods. In other words, how are we going to take advantage of this investment that'll better connect us regionally and make sure that any development around the stops better connects people to where they live, work, play, worship, shop, and connect businesses to customers, and that it also makes the streetscapes inviting and engaging, and we actually are able to build small parks for people to gather and hang out in.
So it's meant to be sort of a nice lifestyle. Is it a lifestyle issue?
I think it's really a neighborhood. Everybody on Hawaii thinks about where they live as their neighborhood, and in some cases this is really reinforcing the neighborhoods, helping them to grow up and make them better through growth. The key to it, as you said at the beginning, is really making sure that we go to the people. And we've been spent 8 years planning some of these neighborhoods with lots of community input. So it's really their ideas that we're trying to get the regulations to enforce.
Now, Senator Harimoto, the rail is going to basically go right through your district, and there's a number of transit-oriented developments there. What's the vision that you have for how that rail line is going to look where it goes through Aiea, Pearl City, and so on?
Well, I think, the bigger picture is what is it going to do to transform the city? I really am excited about TOD because it's a transformative thing. It helps us to keep the country. I mean, that's what really got me sold on rail. Mm-hmm. It helps us to densify, concentrate the developments in the urban core. And really a core value that we all have here is keep the country. So coming through my neighborhood, it goes down Cam Highway. It gives us a real opportunity now to relaunch the old Pearl Harbor Historic Trail vision. As we create the dense developments around the rail station, we need to keep the open spaces, the green spaces. If we use the smart growth principles, we need those values embedded in the development so it's not just an urban jungle. And I think that's really a key point. We need to be conscious of the need to make it a sense of place where people want to go, and we can't do that by just having a jungle.
Okay, Donna Wong with Hawaii's Thousand Friends. Do you think that they're really defending that? Do you hear all these great things about keep the country? Do you believe it?
we've gone from growth management to smart growth. Now we're into TOD, and each one has its matrix of ideas and suggestions. We have great laws at the state and the county level as to protect our natural resources. You're taking and I don't know why we have to have the separate TODs. What cannot happen under our existing laws or put into the existing county ordinances to accomplish the same things. TODs are troubling because they will be an own special district, and each district will be carved out within a half-a-mile radius. And I'd like to show a map of what that would look like.
We have it on electronically, so you.
So that's what it looks like when you take this half-a-mile radius around each rail station, and that clusters high density and creates the special districts marching along. So when you look at that,
let me interrupt you. So essentially, so I understand what you're saying is that's quite a lot of property, is what you're saying. That's now under a whole nother regulatory scheme, right. And it sounds like you're a little suspicious of what that's going to mean.
Well, they can have their own density. Each special district will have its own zoning, its own density, its own parking regulations, its own height regulations. And you can see the pilikia we've had with Kaka'ako when it's HCDA. That's carved out of the city planning system.
Okay, let me ask from the developer point of view, Walter Tamas from Bishop Estate. What does it mean for a developer? Is it more regulation, less regulation? Is it more red tape? Does it make it easier to develop, harder to develop? What do you guys see in TOD?
Well, that remains to be seen, obviously, because it's just beginning. Kaka'ako is a special district. But just to clarify, Darryl, Kamehameha Schools, we're more of a landowner. We do particular projects here and there, but as you see in Kaka'ako, a lot of our work is around trying to plan the community. And then we bring developers in, and they actually do development themselves, so we can stay out of that business as much as possible. But we do recognize a certain responsibility to providing certain amenities, rental housing, which we're doing ourselves. And so it's a mixed view that we're taking to any kind of urban growth and development as far as Kamehameha Schools' role. But the city process, it's going to trail the Kaka'ako process, and it'll be coming on. We've been talking with the city about an area in Kapalama where we have consolidated holdings and the desire to plan with the city and with the community going forward. And
so, Harrison Roof, with the city, is this another layer of bureaucracy on top of the existing laws, or are you literally, the city is taking controls of those big spaces there?
Great question, and I would share Donna's concerns if what we were doing was as she described. The good news is we're not. So we've to avoid the kind of thing that she's concerned with, it's not a separate district like HCDA with different control like state. It's the same planning department. What we've done is carefully looked at the existing regulations in each one of those areas. In some cases it's farmland, in some cases it might be apartment, and we've created some new districts that can be applied to those areas so that you have more flexibility for mix of uses. You can have the stores and retail and offices under the apartment houses, things like that, which is a very efficient use of land. That's one of the ways we keep country. And then we're using literally the same kind of LUO ordinances that already exist, but creating not lots of special districts, just one through the whole area except for HCDA, so 19 stations, one special district.
I don't know if that's any more reassuring than 20 that are all separated around.
Yeah, well, but some of our concerns is going to be different in every one. Okay. We've tried to make sure that the plans, listening to the people, the plans really reflect the different community character in each one of the areas. Listening to the people.
Senator, on that point, do you feel like your constituents really know what's coming and have figured this out, or are they sort of just now sort of waking up and going, holy cow, there's big changes ahead? Do you feel like people are really ready for this?
Well, the city has been working with the communities for years, probably 7, 8 years at least. And it started with Waipahu and Pearl City, so my communities. It's hard to get people to get involved early on. Mm-hmm. It's really at the tail end that people wake up and say, oh, what's going on? But we tried our best to get people involved with the process, and I think it's always how it is. People join in along the way, and we do our best to bring them up to speed. But if I could address Donna's concerns, I think I've heard that a lot. But as I travel to different cities, and Harrison's the expert on this, but from a layman's perspective, I always study what they did with TOD and rail. And my takeaway from every city is that the best practice is to plan. The city doesn't do the development, but everyone tells me the best practice is the city must create the plan, because without the plan, development would occur by themselves. It's a natural phenomenon around rail stations.
Well, one question that comes to mind, and I was thinking about this earlier, is what's wrong with that? I mean, what's wrong with the free market making these decisions?
Well, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just that we create this vision with the community. This is what the community wants to see for the future. And it's not this year, it's not next year, but it's 10, 20, 30 years in the future. And all I've heard from the different cities is that's the best practice, because you have to paint this vision of the future, and we're not developing, city's not developing, but it's the vision that developers, you're going to try to entice developers to follow the vision. And that's what we're trying to do.
Donna, what are your concerns when you hear that?
So that's it. Somebody's going to have to pay for something. Somebody's paying for this infrastructure. Somebody's giving the incentives for developers to come in and build, and that's the taxpayers, right? So it's the first time I'd heard, because after reading the ordinance, it's the first time I heard that there's going to be just one special district instead of, as the ordinance says, around each rail station. And that doesn't give me great comfort, because it's seeking, and you have to make it pencil out, higher density. And within that higher density, those are people's homes, those are people's businesses, and we've already seen the trauma that's caused with rail and having to buy properties along the line. So you can just imagine when you take something this long and this complex and covering this great a district, how many people are going to be impacted? A redevelopment is one of the keys that's in the ordinance.
Let me, Harrison, I'm going to echo what Donna Wong has said with some of the questions that have come in now from our audience, and I want to honor them with very smart questions. Transit-oriented development sounds like an excuse to take over open spaces and develop the land. Sounds wonderful, but it's handing us over to the developers. That's Danielle in Makakilo. And another question, has anyone looked at Oahu's carrying capacity for our limited water resources? It's another attempt to push population outward or increase population. Harrison Rue, is this just another way to force development where otherwise there wouldn't be room for it?
No, I don't believe so. And again, it's within the general plan. The general plan for the whole island says we should focus on the urban area. The kind of urban area plan says let's focus along the rail corridor. So we're kind of following those general principles that have been around for decades. And I think if you understand, say, the way that we go about looking at every plan, like in Ala Moana, for instance, nobody's saying let's develop on this parkland. The consultants in the neighborhoods really looked at what land is developable. The parking lots, the old kind of strip malls as a small building surrounded by parking, non-historic 30, 40-year-old building, the low-value buildings that are non-historic, and sort of looked at those, and those are the lots where we looked at and said this is the place where development is likely from a market perspective. Not the open space and things like that.
Well, speaking of the market, Kamehameha Schools actually, we were talking about it earlier, actually owns a number of parcels along the route. Yes. Are you seeing an uptick in the value of those parcels? I mean, is there pressure, once that rail goes in, to actually go to highest and best use there at a higher level than you would if you just kept status quo in terms of the transportation infrastructure?
We're not seeing it now. Many of the parcels that we own along in areas like Pearl Ridge, they're under long-term ground leases. So, we're the owner, but in many cases, they're locked up for 20, 30 years. And so, the control of those properties are actually with the lessee. Kaka'ako, you notice Kamehameha Schools has spent some attention in Kaka'ako because those are properties that we have control of. And the area in Kapalama is the next area where we have leases expiring in the next 5 to 10 years that will create opportunity for redevelopment should it be feasible at that time.
What do you expect there? I've seen some of the drawings along Kapalama. Kapalama Canal right now is industrial.
Yep.
There's a lot of homeless people living right now along the canal. What's your vision there for that area? What kind of thing do you think we should see there in the next 15?
It's
20
really
years?
early in our planning, but an obvious solution for housing in the urban core is in Kapalama. It's very close to downtown, right on the other side of the canal. It's close to the community college, right on the rail line. And so it's housing, rental housing is something we've been talking with the city about as well. So we'll see what kind of solutions can come out. Mixed use is a big hallmark of transit. It's placing housing with work, retail, amenities, services. So it is probably the largest block of land that Kamehameha Schools owns along the rail line. So we'll be patient in thinking how we plan those parcels out.
Senator Harmoto, this reminds me of a concern about gentrification. Kapalama does have a lot of low-income housing, and is there a concern that you have? Your district has a lot of affordable housing that people who live there now might be pushed out by these developments.
Yeah, that's a huge concern that I think all of us share. And we've seen it across the country, people wrestle with that. But I think the key really is that some of these communities are aging. The buildings are quite old and they're in need of rebuilding. This really gives us an opportunity. And I think, cautious of the gentrification issue, we need to deal with that. But this gives us an opportunity, as was already mentioned, to increase our stock of affordable housing. We can handle more of the social equity issues around the rail stations. If we can put more of these low-income housings or affordable housings, people aren't forced then to buy cars or buy a second car or buy a third car. They can just now jump on the rail or jump on the bus to get to where they need to go. And I think this is really a social equity issue.
To get a little deeper into that issue, Harrison Rue from the city, is there a rule that says if development comes into a certain place that the number of housing units at each income level need to be intact? Or could we have situations where really people are displaced and there's no place to go?
So there's an existing rule, the unilateral agreement rule, that if somebody is applying for rezoning, then you have to provide a portion of affordable housing. But Mayor proposed a draft island-wide housing strategy last fall, and we've been working on the details and preparing to bring it to council soon. And that would basically be island-wide, but it's focused on TOD because it would require similar levels of affordable housing in every development. One of the reasons that's key is to stimulate development. We're proposing that the city adopt the zoning at a low height level, and then require additional community benefits like more affordable housing for the extra height and density.
But let me ask Donna Wong from Thousand Friends. We've seen this formula applied before. Do you think it works? Do you think that will work in terms of preventing people from being displaced from affordable housing?
Well, we already have the formula for the city provision to provide a certain percentage of affordable housing. We already have in the city ordinances for mixed use. So it seems interesting what TOD is going to bring to the table that's different than the existing ordinances.
Let me ask it this way. Do you think that and you guys, I'll give you a chance all on this question because I know in a way it's a tough question. Do you think that adding this additional layer, which seems like an additional layer, is just another way of squeezing money out of the developers in terms of, I'm going to have to go to the council and get this, I have to go to the mayor and get this, and so then I better make sure I get my campaign contributions in?
No, I don't want to go there.
You don't?
No, I don't want to. No. I don't want to go. I don't want to go there. I just think it's a different layer. It's a separate layer. This special district is going to be outside of the development plan. It's so you're just asking the community to even get involved even more. Once you learn the city system, you go down to the city council, this is what you do for your development plan, all of that. Oh, by the way, you've got this special district in here, it's called TOD. So you've got a puka in your planning.
So not to argue, but I would argue that that's not actually true. It's not separate from, it's included in the development plan. It's the same kind of process. We're trying to make it a little bit simpler so that it is, because people do complain about the time that it takes to make development happen, particularly affordable housing. So one of the keys is all of these rules are based on the community plan that in some cases has taken 3 or 4 years and several hundred representative people involved.
Let me ask, this is a very specific question. Good question.
Can I jump in before?
Sure, yeah.
Being a
We understand the same subject, but go ahead.
Being a politician, yeah, I want
You
to
kind of
answer your
resent that
question.
question. Sorry. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
The answer is absolutely no. It's actually the reverse. With the current process, I think it may lend itself to what you described with the political contributions, because the developers most often have to come in for rezoning. And that's where the political push and pull occurs, because the city council has to approve the rezoning. What we're talking about here, as Harrison said, it's pre-zoned to encourage development according to the plan. So there's no rezoning needed. So the developer comes in.
And where's the plan come from?
That's the plan that Harrison was talking about.
Okay, but the plan, and I just want to get this very clear for our viewers, because I think as Donna is saying, it is confusing, because this is new, or maybe it's not new, but it feels new. The plan is an individual neighborhood plan, or the plan is a big plan that has standards all across the way?
There's a neighborhood, there's 21 stops. 2 of them are Kaka'ako. So of the city's 19 in Arculiana, we've divided those up into 8 neighborhood TOD plans with 2 or 3 stops in each one. We don't want 21 plans. So there's a neighborhood TOD plan for Waipahu and West Loch. There's one for Aya, Pearl City, and LCC area, Pearl Highlands. And so each of those is one plan for either 2 or 3. You know, the Alamoana is the only one that's 1. Kalihi has 3 stops from Middle Street to Kapalama.
And where are you in this planning process right now?
So we've completed the 6 of the 8 plans. We've completed the draft. 2 of those, Waipahu and Aya, Pearl City, have been adopted by City Council. We have the draft zoning for Waipahu. We met with the community in November. And we have the Halawa Makai around the stadium, and the airport ones are underway.
Okay, and I don't mean to keep asking you questions one after the other, but you seem to be the one on this particular point of how this is going to work. So here's a place, 2 or 3 stops. We'll talk about Waipahu. Got a plan. Yeah. So what does that mean for a landowner? Do you have property in Waipahu?
We actually do. It's under ground lease, though.
Under ground lease, okay.
Yeah.
But so you're a lessee or whoever. How does that end up affecting that person, that person, and when they decide to make a development? Who do they go to, and how do they find out?
So we did the plan, people's input in. If people didn't like the plan, we made adjustments in the zoning to kind of have property come in. We have a draft zoning. We mailed notices to everybody who owns property. They came out to meeting. We got their input, and we're getting ready to bring the zoning to the City Council next month. Once it's adopted, then they just go through. There's like 3 levels. I'm hoping it's like 2/3 of them are kind of a ministerial permit. You got a noodle shop, you want to build housing above, run a major building, you can come down, get your permit on the ground floor of City Hall, of Honolulu Hale. If it's a major one and you're doing something special or a larger project, you probably have to come up and meet with the folks on the 7th floor, and that you may be able to get your permit there, and certain kinds of permits that are special have to go through a City Council approval process.
Okay, let me go to Walter Tamas. So how, as a landowner, when you're looking at this process, has it gotten a little bit more transparent for you? Is it more straightforward?
It's actually one we haven't tested yet. We haven't really done anything. It's a new process, as was mentioned, for everyone. Our work so far has been in Kaka'ako, which has been under the HCDA jurisdiction. And the planning for Kaka'ako has been going back 30 years. And so, we've been patient. In fact, what you see from Kamehameha Schools now is a master plan that was approved in 2009 and started on in 2005. And so it's been a long process, that's for sure.
Okay, and another question from a viewer. The guests keep talking about encouraging types of development. Is anything being discouraged? Senator Harmoto, is there anything you don't want to see around these sites?
Well, as I said, I don't want to see a concrete jungle, that's for sure. And I think because of the way the plans are developed, we're really encouraging the best practices with smart growth, the open spaces, green spaces, the gathering places. So it's just where people want to live, they want to walk and stroll down the street. That's the picture of the future that we're trying to encourage.
Okay, let me ask this question now too. Senator, I know that the Senate and the governor have actually talked quite a bit about the availability of state land and the possibility of building affordable housing. And I think there was some talk about 9,000 units or so of affordable rentals is being envisioned on the state properties. Overall, what percentage of transit-oriented development is going to be truly affordable low-income housing? What would you like to see in terms of as these things going up? Do you think it should be 30% affordable and below, 50%, 60%? What do you think personally?
Well, I think it certainly should be a mixture. I don't think we ever want to concentrate any particular income group in one place. So it's all mixed use, mixed incomes. But I think what people don't realize is that the state is one of the largest landowners around the rail stations, if not the largest. And the state has been really late coming to the table on this. So I think we're finally at the point where people are going, aha, we need to work with the city on this. So thanks to Senator Suzanne Chun Oakland and some of the others, we're convening all the different agencies, the departments and agencies together, get them sitting around one room, and Harrison is there, and we're trying to get everybody to understand what we mean by TOD. Each agency has their own little vision, their own little way of doing things, and I think we all need to kind of collaborate and share, and that's really encouraging, I think.
Okay, Donna Wong with Thousand Friends, have you been reassured by the comments of the other guests here?
No, it's just like was suspected. There's another layer. Harrison just said that, but the zoning's going to be in place. You just go down to the first floor and you just get your permit. Now, the community, we've been trying to educate them, bring them along, that you do your development plans. That's where you put your input. That's how to show where your community will grow and how it will grow. And in comes these special districts, whether it's single, half a mile around, or a big, long corridor. They have special zoning. They have special and different densities than outside of these half mile. So, you're going to start seeing this construction, and I always go, how did they get to do that? That's not in the zoning.
Is that what your greatest... okay, go ahead.
Let's go ahead and have the argument, because that's what we're here for. So in every one of the TOD plans, it is actually, it's in the plan that it is based on the development plan.
In the
refers
PUC?
to it. Yeah, absolutely. And in each plan, it's based on the existing documents that Don is concerned about. So that vision of the requirements are in there. The reason for some different rules is to enforce what we have heard from virtually every one of the neighborhoods. They want to have more affordable housing. They want to have really active streetscapes, tired of the concrete jungle. They want to have usable parks and open space to gather in. And so a lot of our rules are about that. What you can't do on most of the key streets is just plunk a building setback and then a big parking lot in front of it. Buildings up on the street, walkable streetscapes, gathering spaces, nearby for people to walk to, and that's what the new rules are about. And then mixed use to allow, commercial. People want active streetscapes, so commercial and retail and restaurants on the ground floor, housing above.
This is the last question before we take a little break here. I've seen it time and time again where the planning phase is offered to the public and nobody shows up, or not very many people show up, kind of what Donna is describing. And then when they see the grading begin and the buildings going up, then they pay attention. Will there be an opportunity in this process, by the time people are tearing up ground, for there to be any public input about, well, maybe we don't like this vision after all?
Sure, there is, and I guess every plan is iterative. So if we've goofed on some of the iterative, if we've goofed on some of these 5 years, 10 years from now, if they're wrong, we'll refresh them. But I think the main thing is there's been a lot of opportunity. We're never going to get 800,000 people to come to all of our workshops. Our goal is to make sure it's representative. that we have, the stakeholders and walk around the community and get all the business people involved. We get people to come to the workshops who represent the community. But when we mailed it to every property owner in Waipahu, which is a pretty good test, 120 people came to the workshop. They had lots of good concerns. Many, like Donna's, what's going to happen? They all walked away and thought, oh, this is pretty good. This gives me more flexibility on my property, and they're not going to make me do anything.
Okay, we're going to take a little break. When we come back, lots of questions from our viewers about exactly what's going to be there at these different TOD stops. We'll talk about that. So as a reminder, we're talking about transit-oriented development and whether or not it works for Hawaii. We invite you to join in tonight's conversation by calling, emailing, or tweeting your questions and comments. Call 973-1000 if you live on Oahu and 800-283-4847 if you're on a neighbor island. Okay, so I got a big stack of things about what's going to be in these things. Okay.
Harrison, I'm sorry
Oh.
if you think we're arguing.
No, this is.
I thought we were having a discussion with different points of view, so I didn't think it was arguing. So.
No offense taken at all. No, I just meant,
No,
I
no.
should have used a different word.
You
direct
said
discussion.
I should be the one taking offense because you thought I was arguing with you.
Anyway, good job, both of you. You're doing well. Okay, so if they don't want a concrete jungle, does that mean there won't be many parking lots near the train stops? I've got 3 or 4 questions specifically about, and picturing TOD, I always thought, or a transit stop, if I live up the hill and I want to go catch the train, can I drive down and park at around the transit stop? I mean, Senator Haramoto, should that be able to do?
Well, I think what people need to understand is right now we have 525 buses, and majority of them are going down this corridor. With rail, the rail will do that, the heavy lifting going down this corridor. So we're going to have buses reoriented to give more service to the communities by going around the communities. Where I live right now, we get bus service during the middle of the day, maybe once every other hour. And I think with rail coming along, it's going to free up a lot of buses to come more often to more places. So we would like to encourage people not to be in the mentality of, I need to drive everywhere. And that's a stretch. I think it'll take people a while to get there.
Well, there's an interesting point you make, a stretch, because we've talked about it a lot of times, people trying to imagine their habits with this rail. And we discussed it at the office today. It was like, well, we think a lot of people are going to want to drive and park by the closest rail stop so that they can do their errands between the rail stop and their house. Have you guys talked about that? Where you have the opportunity to develop around a rail stop, are you guys going to be providing a lot of extra parking for people coming from outside?
That's an interesting point, because I think in some of the conversations we've had, you may get away with providing less parking actually for residents. I think the retailers tend to prize parking. And so it'll be changing the mindset of retailers that people can actually come and visit their shops for through the rail experience and not drive to it. So the real pressure that I see in the marketplace is the retailers' demand for parking. Parking is a requirement, and if retailers are going to need it, we're going to have to provide it as a landlord.
We've got a surprise. That's going to be up to you and your retailers, because our proposal is to not require any commercial and retail, and make it a market decision in the TOD areas. Because if you look at the places that have built, most places end up building too much, and then they got to figure out what to do with it.
Too much commercial?
Too much parking. In general, because people tend to overbuild for parking, and it's not used as much as needed.
You're talking about the experience in other cities?
Yeah.
Oh, and what happens then?
Well, they tend to lease it out to other people, and for instance, when somebody builds too much, then the building next door can go in, apartment house with no parking at all, and just rent the spaces that are in the one that they overbuilt.
Donna, do you think that this idea that people are going to give up their cars and get on buses and get on the rail is realistic?
Not from my experience when talking to community members. I live in the windward side. What are you going to do? I go to Kapolei a lot. Okay, drive over H3, park my car at the stadium, go to Ho'opili or go to the Y. That's it. I'm not even in Kapolei. Okay, and there's no bus. So that's just my example that wouldn't work. There's others, they take their kids to school. You drop them off at the babysitter. How are you going to do all of those things without a car?
Do you think, Senator Haramoto, that Hawaii is going to be different from these sort of places, or do you think that there might be a tendency to just build for a lot of cars that don't come?
As far as I can tell, every city has the same dilemma at the beginning. And it takes time for people to change their habits, to understand. And Don is right. Certainly, there's many people who still need their cars, and that's fine. We're not saying everyone should give up their cars. But for those who can or choose to, this is a wonderful opportunity. For me, I catch the bus every now and then. I would catch it more often if it came more often. It's a matter of convenience.
It's really about building in more choice that's lacking right
Yes.
now, and it's going to be different neighborhoods. Kalihi, already in Kalihi, 50% of people walk, bike, or take bus to work. Half the community in Kalihi.
Okay, so another question from a viewer about what's going to be there. Does transit-oriented development include provision for senior housing? If so, what?
Absolutely. I think we just had the age-friendly summit last Saturday, and through the city and a lot of our partners are really focusing on making the community more age-friendly, which is really making it easier for people, keiki to kapuna, to get around the community and gathering spaces. So,
Is that something that, though, it happens naturally as a result of some kind of economic dynamic, or is that something that is going to be required?
both, as a for instance, well, I don't think we'll be requiring senior housing, because that's like the occupant. What we are doing, as a for instance, the city is funding and taking advantage of some assets we already have. So a few months ago, we put out an RFP for development of a parcel on River Street for affordable senior housing, and that's getting ready to get awarded for development. So where we have property, we're actually looking at trying to catalyze affordable housing development, and seniors is one of those needs.
You go ahead.
No, it's interesting. I was going to add on that some of it is happening naturally. I know we actually just had a meeting with our colleagues from Queens to talk about development that's happening in Kaka'ako and potentially in Kapalama, and how they can tweak their planning to take into account a different population base that Queens needs to serve, and they're looking.
What's the motivation for that? It's out of their mission as opposed to because Queens is a substantial landowner. I mean, the foundation is a substantial landowner.
Their mission is to serve folks in Hawaii with healthcare, and I think they're looking at a very changing dynamic. And can their campus support more people living in the urban core? So it was just a natural thing that they called and wanted to talk in here about what we knew.
Senator, the way this is set up, I'm still a little fuzzy. I mean, how much of this is going to be directed by government mandates, and how much of it is going to be the free enterprise system? I mean, free enterprise is going to pay for most of it, right?
People have trouble with this concept, and I think Don is typical of things that I've encountered. People somehow perceive this to be the government, the city, mandating something or commandeering private land. But all it is a plan. It's a vision of the future. It's a plan. And landowners, as they're ready to redevelop or as they're ready to do something, the plan is there. So it is totally the free market. There is no requirement to do anything. The landowner can choose to do nothing. But if they choose to redevelop, here's the plan that we would hope you would follow, and here's why you should.
So what's the carrot and stick, Harrison, that gets them to end up doing your plan?
So number one, the market. In other words, the market is tending to do this stuff already. Even with seniors, we did a plan for around Pearl Highlands, and I think MW Group came in and started building right along, above the mall there. That's a market based, and they're sort of following the plan even before it's adopted. It made sense. So it's primarily the market. If you're near transit, that's where people are going to want to be, and developers are starting to focus there. But we're also looking at other incentives. So, for instance, reducing the parking requirements within TOD, because studies show that people will drive less, maybe have one car instead of two, or get by with no car. We're also coming up with some incentives for providing additional density if you provide more community benefits like affordable housing.
Just a layman's translation. So you've got a parcel there, and right now the zoning says you can put 400 units in a 10-story building, but I want to put in 500 units in a 20-story building, but I've got to do something back for the public, right?
That's the simple version, yeah.
Very simple.
Numbers
I
not
know.
quite right, but you know, principle, yeah.
Okay, and then, so what are the things you get using that
I
formula
mean, we, the
out of the
public,
developers?
get out
Yeah,
the benefits.
right, right.
Again, going back to the things that people have asked for uniformly, but also in their own, you know, neighborhood TOD plan. We're asking for primarily still the main three things as community benefits. Affordable housing, really great streetscapes, maybe, you know, require them to connect to a nearby park, things like that, and great public places. It's open for a developer to propose something else. If they look at the plan and there's really a desire for a new library, or the Board of Ed has said, we really want a school, and they could say, we'll provide a floor for the school. You know, they're talking about that kind of stuff in Kakako. So,
Let me ask this question, and I know that Senator Haramoto dealt with this quite a lot, and you're in a corridor that this will be an issue. Will it be noisy living next to the rail system? Do you want to ask all the questions that we have?
I
think
get
that's an
that
interesting
question a lot. People compare our rail system to like Chicago L or BART. They're night and day. I've been on BART, I've been on the Chicago L, I've been on the Metro DC. I've also been in Copenhagen. Now, Copenhagen has the very same train that we are getting here. It's the sister train. It's amazingly quiet. It's not silent, but it's amazingly quiet. And as we researched it, the new generation of trains are very quiet. In one instance, I did hear the train squeal, and in that one car only. The other cars were good. And it was explained that that's why there needs to be constant maintenance on the wheels. And I think they call it wheel
Squeaky
chewing.
wheel gets the grease.
Yeah, so they have to be sure there's no blemishes on the wheel.
we got a whole building, wheel
Yeah.
through it, and they're going to go in there and mill the
But
wheels every so often.
it's not noisy
called City Hall.
like people think it is. I stood out there while the trains went by. To me, actually, it's much quieter than a bus. I mean, to me, that's probably the best comparison.
Okay, another interesting comment along kind of what Donna was saying earlier. Two that kind of work together, and it said, here's a suggestion from Amelia Lund residents that each station should be capped by Walgreens or Longs and closer to in a restaurant. And another person says, how is TOD going to work for someone trying to bring home 5 bags of groceries? Harrison, I'll let you.
Sure. Well, I happen to ride bus sometimes and drive sometimes, and I'm often on the bus with stuff, and a lot of people tend to carry things on existing transit. So you generally don't tend to do your big shopping, in the bus. You break it up. But more interestingly, we're starting to see, even Costco, Sam's Club, people either go shop there and then have things delivered. There will be areas on the train for large parcels, for surfboards, suitcases, things like that. So if you do have one of those roller things, you'll be able to bring it on.
Another question.
But I should say,
Yeah.
in cities like this with transit, people tend to be out walking the neighborhood more. There's more of a tendency to do the kind of daily shopping on your way home and pick things up because you want to talk to the people in the market, and it's
I think that's the nature of the question,
Yeah.
and I'm wondering, Walter Tamas, in your vision for the projects that you have, is there that retail shop and walk kind of concept for the people who live around the transit station? Are they going to have to get off the train, catch a bus to get to the grocery store, get to the grocery store, catch a bus to get back home, or will you have that? And what's the incentive to provide that?
Well, as planners, we think it's essential, actually. And for Kaka'ako, we're planning a small urban grocer right there in the middle of our blocks, so that you don't need to be taking that 5-bag trip once a week. You can pop in and out as a
Plus, you
normal
won't have
course.
plastic bags
Yeah.
to use. So.
That's what I heard. That's what I heard.
I hate to be putting it all in the private sector, but this is something, we got some pretty Akamai business people in Hawaii. I've met with at least 3 or 4 of the small store and big store folks, and they're traveling the mainland. They're looking at how this is done, and they're starting to look at changing their product line and their assumptions about parking. So the market is going to work on that.
Donna, I just want to toss to you. Do you believe that that's the way it'll work out, or do you think that people are still going to end up with big box stores being where they go for their groceries.
Yeah, that's the draw, and the draw is the cost, of course. I'd like to just enter into something we're talking about, TOD around rail. We haven't talked about TOD that's possible around bus stations. And that's a state coming out of the Smart America and the Office of Planning report, where they're talking about all the islands. You could have this transit-oriented development around bus stations. So I'm pretty sure, actually I know, that neighbor islands are totally unaware of what a TOD, maybe not the people you talk with, but I talk with the people, and they have no idea what TOD is.
So is TOD relevant to the neighbor islands?
Yes, yeah, and we call it something different. I coined a term about a decade ago called transit-ready development, which is I call TOD for the rest of us. You know, if you're planning a bus system, and you know, I've worked with folks on Maui. It's actually we incorporate transit-ready development in the island-wide housing strategy, since it's island-wide, and you know, specifically for the other legacy communities, and it's applying the same principles that you know senators described, but with bus-oriented planning in the rest of our communities.
And you know, Senator, you've traveled a lot to look at these communities, and I've got several questions from people asking about what other cities have experienced. And I know that you want to put a positive spin on these things, but I have people saying, I have lived in a city with rail transit, and I can tell you that's the last place you want to live. Another person was saying that, tell us really how it is in these other places. I mean, is there any place you've been to where the transit-oriented development is a great success from the beginning, or is it just everybody's feeling their way around and there's a lot of problems out there?
There are many success stories out there. I could name a few, but I think the prime example I come to always talk about is the area outside of D.C., right? The Rosslyn-Ballston corridor. I visited there. I took a tour there after a conference. And it's amazing what happened. And it didn't happen overnight, of course, but it is so successful right now. They have all these developments that came in by the same way we're doing it, just coming up with a plan. The development just occurs. And wonderful open spaces, wonderful places to live. People are just pouring in. And I think if I got my statistics right, they said there's an equal number of people coming in and leaving the stations every morning and every afternoon, which shows that people want to live there as well as people want to work there. And I think that's a true sign of success. And this is happening now in LA. I mean, the car capital of the world. LA now is doing this TOD developments. Harrison probably knows more. But you know, I did want to put in another plug. We haven't talked about the health issue. Yeah. That's so important. That's one of the reasons I really got hooked on this. You know, we talk about a sedate lifestyle, you know, diabetes and other health issues coming up. With TOD, the statistics shows that the population becomes more healthy because now people are walking instead of jumping in their cars. It's active lifestyles. And I think that's something that I think we cannot ignore.
Donna, when you are in a position where you're, you know, I know you've been to tables with 3 people on the other side before. Do you feel like this is? I mean, for example, do you agree with that, or how do you feel about some of these arguments about these great expectations?
Well, we had great expectations for Kapolei. It was going to be the second city. Well, that didn't work. It's just a big strip mall. The businesses that went out there were the state offices. They went out there. And if Kapolei had been successful as a second city, you wouldn't have the traffic going into town. But that was a big vision. And that was envisioned way long before rail. And that didn't help. And I'm concerned about Breen's analogy because he's talking about state. We're talking about an island. You know, we're only talking about 20 miles. So I don't think you can compare the ridership or the livability or any of that along a corridor that goes through states as opposed to just 20 miles on small island.
I'm gonna keep rushing through. We've got lots of questions coming in, and I want to get to all of them. A number of questions have come in, even since we were talking about affordable housing. With the one very good question, what does affordable housing mean? What are the income levels, and does that income level vary by neighborhoods?
Sure. So we've kind of read through every report done over the last 10 years or so in developing the draft strategy, and what we discovered is that people use different terms, but there's a need for about 24,000 units of housing that is at 120% of area median income and below. You start thinking of it as really affordable at 80% AMI or below, and that's like $76,650 for a family of 4. Okay, so above 80 or 90% AMI is when you can start to buy a house. Below 80%, really, it's really hard to buy a house. 75% of that need of 24,000 units is at 80 and below. So that's rental. So there's this huge need for rental. That's why you're thinking about that in Kapalama.
Well, I'm sorry. Let me go to Walter Temus. In your folks' plans for Kaka'ako, for example, I mean, is there affordable rentals in your plan significant enough to make a dent in the issue in that area?
Well, it's 20%. 20% of the housing is actually part of the HCDA statute, that the rules that we're vested on there. So we're providing the 20% required.
20% at which income level are we talking about? What's
The rentals we're doing at 100% AMI rentals.
Okay, which is probably more than the $76,000 level you talked about, probably closer to $100,000. So you're talking about affordable, but it's for people whose families that make $100,000.
Yeah, they actually define it as reserve housing. The HCDA requires more reserve housing.
So based on that, I'll throw this out to the three of you. I mean, here's the market speaking.
Yeah.
Now that's a very high-end area, but what's to say that all these TODs won't end up being like that?
So that's one reason we're proposing. If Councilmember was on council still, I'd be looking at him to act on this, but you can take care of the state schoolie on it in this. That's why we're proposing some new rules. Donna's right that we do have rules, but the AMI, the high end is a little too high. It's 140% at both city and state. We're suggesting lowering that. Both city and HCDA don't require them to be affordable for long enough. It varies between 5, 10, 15 years. We think it really needs to be 30 years. We originally suggested 60, somewhere much longer than 10. They need to stay affordable longer so we can build up the supply. And then be for a little more affordable too.
And then the trade-off that you make in order to get the developers to do that is more density, right?
That's one of the trade-offs.
And then the sort of concern of another caller here, another person has, well, you explain this half-mile radius of density. I think that's what Donna was trying to say. Half-mile times 19 is 10 miles. No, it's a half mile. So each is a mile round circle, right?
No, there's some quick answers. We start out with a half mile, but we work with the community and we carve out, like in Waipahu, there's some existing single-family neighborhoods, no change wanted, so they're carved out, and you end up with this thing that's, looks something like that based, and saves some industrial land, no change needed there. So we work with the community. So it's smaller than that half-mile radius, and it carves in the places where people don't really want to see change.
And half-mile radius, that's coming out. I'm trying to remember my
it would be a mile
my
across.
geometry. Yeah, it's a mile across, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, so what you're saying is there might be highly dense developments in that circle, but not the whole circle.
That's right. Yeah, and it varies in character too. Like out in Westlock, it might be from 60 to 90 feet. Kalihi may be 150, and down in Ala Moana, 150 or 250 to 400. So the height varies as well, based on the character.
Donna, anything you want to toss in on that question about affordability and whether we're going to generate enough affordable housing out of this?
Well, when you look at the corridor it's going along, you've got the ocean views. So Kaka'ako originally, when HCDA was approved many decades ago, the idea was Kaka'ako was going to be where people could live and work, and then they could just walk to downtown. Okay, now it's a luxury enclave. It's been captured by the luxury condo market, and you're just screaming and yelling, thank you, but putting in affordable housing to get affordable housing in there. So I don't see any regulations, any stopgap to keep that from happening.
Senator?
Well, there's good TOD and bad TOD, and maybe I should leave it at that.
Okay, interesting. Here's an interesting question. Maybe the question for the future here is someone from Kailua saying, could we have a bus-oriented TOD station in Kailua?
Yes, we could.
Good idea?
Yes, we could.
Great idea.
Great idea. Okay. Last question, and I'm going to ask everybody to keep their answers very short because we're almost out of time. Person brings up the question, gee, having all those buildings, we're going to have more cars in the transit corridor than we have now. Maybe more traffic congestion. What do you do about, is that true?
I would never say there wouldn't be any more cars if you like double the number of buildings, but every place else this has been done, more people choose to not have a car, and you know we're adding bike share, car share, you know, a whole range of other ways to get around.
Okay.
Let me just say that.
Really short.
Real short. Population will continue to increase. Where are they going to live? They have to live somewhere. I'd rather have them live around TOD.
Where they'll have a choice of how they get
Yes.
to town. Okay, very good. Thank you, everybody. Next time on Insights, to vaccinate or not to vaccinate. With the current outbreak of measles on the mainland, the debate about childhood vaccination has flared up. For multiple reasons, such as religion and the fear of autism, some people refuse to have their children vaccinated. But does that put other children at risk? Should Hawaii require all healthy children to be vaccinated? That's next time on Insights on PBS Hawaii. I'm Daryl Huff. Ahui ho.